Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction and recovery. Join your hosts,
the Podfather, Jersey Ed,
Miss Meg,
as they break the silence and speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your Friends in Recovery. Hey, everybody. Welcome to friendsinrecoverypodcast.com, as the Podfather would say. I am Sweets, and I am here with Jersey Ed, and by here, I mean in spirit. Jersey
That's
Ed
right.
is clearly on an island somewhere, smoking a cigar, making us all
like
feel
my
terrible.
shirt. Love my
Carl is apparently...
I just wear the same clothes every day.
Where are you, Carl?
Carl.
I'm in a
Where are
man
you?
closet. I'm in a man closet in Southern California.
You're in
Southern
one of those,
California.
what do they call those safety rooms that you run into? Panic room? Is that panic room?
I'm in the panic room. Yeah, that's a really good term for it. Thank you, Sweets.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
call it
panic
this.
room.
Shit, I'm gonna sign. You know,
Panic
That's
room,
not the
that's
sign
it.
on the door.
yeah.
Welcome to my panic room.
But you need to see it behind me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There you go. You got your new name for your room. So
Sweet,
That is a
wonderful.
great name for wherever you are right now. Where are you? I'm in my panic room. Were you in a
I'm in
panic
my
room? Well, I'm
panic
just
room.
in my office, but I'm full of panic.
No matter
That's-
what room I'm in.
that's
yeah.
any
Yes.
room or panic
They're all
room.
panic rooms.
Real quick, I just want to let you guys know we have a great guest today, Scott Carney. He is he's actually an employee of Genesis House. He's in recovery, and we're going to talk about some midlife recovery once we bring him on. So everybody stay tuned.
Is
for
he
that.
being forced to record? I think we should really ask him when he comes on. Like, if he's
You can
being
ask him
forced to
whatever you
record.
want.
Because I don't know what you guys do with those people over there. So hey, Podfather, I know that this is being recorded, but he's how's he doing? Can we talk about him?
Yeah, we can talk about him. I did not hear back from him yet. So he said it's just a minor procedure that he has to go in for. And as everybody knows, these shows aren't live, so we record them all in one day. So that's why Carl's been on with us all these episodes. And
Taking
with
one
the
from the
Podfather.
team.
That's right, he is. He's got a wicked boner today.
I got a wicked boner.
So Carl from Sober Pod. I love when Ellen says wicked boner. That is just like the funniest fucking thing when she says wicked fucking boner. And of course Steve goes off. And this is all the Sober Pod guys that we're talking about.
A lot of ADD running in.
Oh my God, yes. So, but Carl, thank you very much for doing this. I had the two great episodes we just completed, and I really appreciate the Podfather says thank you very much too, and you're a great celebrity fill-in guest host.
What am I most known for?
Filling in at fucking Friends in Recovery. Come on.
It's infamy. It's not celebrity. It's infamy. It's really
it. That's exactly it. Sweets, how you doing? I remember to say hi to you this time, Sweets.
I
don't
appreciate
got the whole
that.
Podfather job down, but I remembered this time. So
I'm doing all right. I'm having an acceptable day so far.
Yes. And is it nice up in Boston where you're at?
It's beautiful. I'm actually going to go out and get some exercise this afternoon and some sun, some vitamin D.
Nice.
Get my headspace where it needs to be.
Exactly. So when this is going to air, it's going to be on the rainiest fucking day of the year, and everybody's saying, "What the fuck is he talking about?" But we know it's all pre-recorded. So midlife recovery. I think this is right in your wheelhouse there, Carl. You jumped at the chance to stay on and do this show.
Because I came back into recovery at 42 years old. So I mean, this is like, man, it just like hit right. That you just put that topic in my queue, and I'm ready, man.
That's it, and you're ready to hit it. Exactly. So we got Scott Carney coming on with us. Scott Carney is an employee of Genesis House. He's a really, really excellent employee of mine, and he's very caring and loving. And Scott has a really good story. I get to spend some time with Scott when I go out into the Midwest. Your stomping grounds, Carl, Minnesota. We used to go. We before the pandemic, Minneapolis. We spent a lot of time in together. So.
You betcha. I got my pop in my bag on my boat on my lake in Minnesota.
That's it. Yeah,
you betcha.
You know that.
Yeah,
You know that.
I was
You
up
know
in
that area well.
I was up in central Minnesota for a very long time. So I mean, it gets a little bit more earthy up there. Let's just say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What area is that? That's what the hell area is that? St. Cloud. Is that St. Cloud area?
Keep going.
More further up.
Wow.
Fargo,
Brainerd area.
Fargo. Wow.
Brainerd.
Okay.
Fargo the movie, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was in Brainerd
Absolutely.
for a long time. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Hey, well,
I actually went to treatment in St. Cloud for a period of time. It's a state hospital.
They let you in?
Yeah, I was 15 when I went there at that point. Yeah.
Wow. Jesus Christ. There's a lot to know about you. How can we find out about you, Carl?
Oh, you can go to SoberPod.
And don't forget to hit that donate button.
Yeah, just take notes.
Take notes, exactly. Yes, well, all kidding aside, SoberPod, head over to SoberPod and check them out. The Carl is, again, gracious enough to come on to our podcast and give a payback and listen to him over at his home.
This always feels like one of those, like, remember when you were like a kid and like the Harlem Globetrotters would like come on and like, I don't know, like Gilligan's Island, or like Gilligan's Island would like go and like mix with like the Brady Bunch or something. It always feels kind of like that. It just feels like
exactly. Exactly. Well, we had you guys on the show before everybody, and it was a good show. So go check that out.
We've really enjoyed it. Actually, we talk about it all the time. So.
Yep, absolutely. And one thing I have to, before we bring Scott on, we'll bring him on in a minute. I do have to thank you guys so much. And I forget, you and I had this conversation. I forget, first of all, I always forget about the phone number. So if you have any questions for Carl or anybody, Sweets, myself, 617-379-1163. Give us a call at that number. Leave us a message. Help at friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. You can send us an email there. But Steve, at the end of your show, guys, listen to the whole show of SoberPod. And at the end of the show, Steve always says, Carl, what's going on with Friends in Recovery? We get a free plug almost every show on SoberPod for the last couple months now. So we appreciate that deeply. So I'm going to start plugging you guys. I know I've been doing Jersey Ed's podcast picks a week. We're going to change that up a little bit, and we're going to start pushing you guys a little bit more. So
good. I think this is a good relationship. I think it works out. You guys, East Coast, we're West Coast, some different flavors going on. We
Absolutely.
all have different, come from different points of view. It's pretty cool.
Yep. We'll melt it all together. And on that note, we're going to speaking of melting it together, we're going to bring Scott in to melt it even more.
Like, please do not introduce me that way.
I know. Hey, Scott, welcome to the show. And we're happy to have you here. I know we've talked a lot about getting you on here, and you've been with us for a while now, and we haven't been able to get you on, and here you are.
Well, thank you, Ed. Thank you, Carl. I'm humbled to be on here talking, and very honored, and looking forward to it.
Can I first say and interrupt? I just want to say that I already have a lot of respect for you, and I don't even care what comes out of your mouth next. The fact that Ed said that you were a loving and caring person, really, I was like, oh, that's really touching. Like, I would love to be introduced that way. I just don't seem to get introduced that way. So,
fucking Carl's here from fucking SoberPod, motherfucker. That's how we introduce him.
I just want to say, whatever comes out of your mouth next, Scott, I really look forward to it. So.
Yeah, thanks.
To be here.
Scott is Scott's actually, we're going to do the reason why I put Scott on is because we wanted to talk about midlife recovery. And I got recovery earlier in my life when I was 28 years old. But that's not necessarily everybody goes that way. I know somebody who got recovery when they were 16, and that I couldn't even understand that one. But the midlife one is probably tough, guys. I'm guessing, because you're well established. Or you were well established. Scott, I know you own a very successful business before you came on with Genesis House, and when you got into your addiction. So that must be a tough transition, trying to go reinvent yourself, basically, is what you did, I guess.
Yes. And it was, I was 48 years old. I've been struggling with addiction and chemical dependency for probably about 7 to 10 years in active addiction. I did start out, my first treatment for cocaine was when I was about 24. At that point, they told me that I could never drink again. I could never do any mood altering substances. And I said, well, I don't have a problem with drinking. I have a problem with cocaine. So, but where do I end up 20 some years later is at rehab for alcoholism was the primary choice.
Well,
So
the problem you had with cocaine is you couldn't afford it, right? I'm
was
just kidding, everybody. I'm kidding.
that was one of the problems that I had is I could afford it.
That's even a worse problem, man.
But I mean, if you had ever told me, when I started my career that I would be doing what I'm doing today, I would have told you you're crazy. Just because, I had a successful business. I was in it for probably the only job I ever had. It was the only job I ever had in my whole life besides bartending and paper out. And it was my great grandfather started it. And, I just became, in my head, I thought I was a functioning alcoholic. According to everybody else, which were always the last to know, I was not functioning. So,
exactly.
I was to 4 inpatient treatments and 3 ILPs in my journey of recovery. And, it just is it's a tough thing. I went from making mid 6 figures a year to being on state insurance.
Wow.
I'm losing, not knowing where my house payment was going to come from. I was losing my family. It's not easy, but thank God the promises come true. It just takes time. But it's a very humbling experience, and very hard to go down. It's very easy to go up, but come down.
Yes.
That's a huge challenge in itself.
Well, I like how you said humbling experience. A lot of people would be angry. I had all this and now I had to let it go. I know your story because you and I spent a lot of time together, but and you are a humble human being, and I really look up to you for that. And I really enjoy the times that we do get spend together because you slow my ass down. You have that Midwestern kind of flair that it's okay to go to slow down. It's okay.
Minnesota nice is what they call
Minnesota nice. Yes. Well, Scott's actually from Wisconsin, but
Wisconsin nice, Yeah,
exactly. So
I recovered in Minnesota.
Yes, he did.
And my house manager, my sober house, used to work for Genesis House, and that's kind of how I got into this. And
that's right. Yeah.
I can remember I met William Moyers up at Vice President Betty Ford Hazelden up in St. Paul, and I had to decide what am I going to do when I grow up, and I was 48. And he's like, well, what do you know how to do? I said, well, I know how to run a HVAC business and an oil business, but the only other thing is how to drink. And he said, well, what and what about doing something to help the next guy? And I just been through treatment, and I have the best job in the world. I seriously do. I never thought I would be as fortunate. I didn't think that life was going to go on. But I learned, and I was patient, and that's something that I really had to learn. I had to relearn my life. I had to relearn how to live without being able to self-medicate. And it was really tough.
Well, how scary was that jumping off point when you said, okay, well, now, my family's not letting me back in this business. Now I got to figure something else out. I mean, how did you stay sober through that? Because that's something that in midlife, man, you don't want to change gears and do something different and try to reinvent yourself. You're ready to wind down and start looking at retirement, especially owning a company. You could have retired probably at 48. You had to go out and bust fucking balls again.
Right. And I was my third, or actually it was my third inpatient treatment. I got out on Friday. I went back in Monday and said, I'm ready to go to work. And they said, well, we don't know what we're going to do with you. And of course, I went back out, and I was back in treatment on Wednesday. So I don't recommend that you jump back in. The next time I went to treatment, I went to sober living for 6 months after and volunteered at the treatment center. I had to retrain my brain how to think again. Because when you come from where I was, you could have whatever you want, when you want, and how you want.
Yeah, yeah.
And you get that mindset, and then that mentality in my brain just continued to want everything, and it was all for me, selfish, self-centered.
Yeah.
And it takes time to do that. So there's not an easy time to recover.
No.
I look at, you say midlife is pretty tough. Yeah, it is, but it's also tough when you're young and everybody else is doing what you want to do and you can't do it. So every recovery's tough. But then throw 2 children and a wife in there.
Yeah.
At the age of 8, 9, when I first went in, I'll never forget kneeling down by the couch and telling him Daddy had to go get better. Worst memory of my life. But today I'm there for them 110%.
And Carl, that's something that you and I were just talking about with your kids. You're there for them for 110%. Now, I think in between shows we were talking about that.
I mean, give it 90%. I mean, if I'm really
86, 87.
I mean,
I'll be honest. I got to be honest. As an honest program, there's days I'm there for 30%.
Yeah. But when you can, it's 110. Yeah,
that's right. Exactly.
I mean, everybody's like that. There's not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why there's 2 parents. That's why God made 2 parents. So I only have to give 50%. And she can give the other 50.
That would be ideal.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, let's bring the wives in. Let's have that discussion, shall we?
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good.
Honey, can you come here for a second?
Oh my God. No, I'm just kidding. So Carl, so how does that resonate with you as far? Oh, let's do this before we get into that. Let's take a quick break here, pay some bills, and we'll be right back. Friends in Recovery podcast.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery. Welcome back to the Friends in Recovery Addiction Recovery podcast. We want to thank our sponsor Genesis House for supporting this show, along with individuals in recovery and the people that love them. Friends in Recovery Community of Support holds events across the country sponsored by Genesis House in Palm Springs, Florida, Marlton, New Jersey, Newtown, Connecticut, and Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. The Friends in Recovery Addiction Recovery podcast is powered by your likes, follows, subscribes, and shares. And please be sure to do us a favor and leave us a 5-star review. And now here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Friends in Recovery podcast. I am Jersey Ed here with Carl from Sober Pod and Sweets over in the studio and in our studio. Sweets podcast studio, and Scott Carney, our special guest here, talking about midlife recovery. Before the break, I was going to ask Carl, how does that resonate with you as far as all that goes, as far as getting back into the work scene? And I don't know if you got taken down as far as Scott did, or were you, midlife is, again, I only know early recovery. I only know early life recovery. So I honor you guys.
I think it's funny is like we talk about, I made some notes here, like functional alcoholic. I love when I hear functional alcoholic, because it's like, I mean, you really think that you're doing it, and the other thing is like when you joke to other people, and I'm sure you did this too, Scott. Like you're like, well, you'd be drinking in a bar somewhere, doing business, whatever it is, and the topic would come up like, and you'd say, "Oh, I'm a functional alcoholic," right? It's like you'd say it jokingly, and it's like, and then the other things I would do is, I would say shit like, "Yeah, I only drink medicinally," right? It's like what the fuck is what am I talking about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care if you put whatever you put in front of the word alcoholic still equals alcoholic, right?
Absolutely.
And I didn't, and like Scott, what, 24, you say you had cocaine problem, and I had meth problems when I was freaking younger, but see, I never had a problem drinking either, right? But I never had a problem with alcohol until I had a problem with alcohol. So that's kind of how it goes. And I didn't have a problem with meth until I had a problem with meth. It's like, that's kind of how it works, So, but what happened to me was I was like Scott, I was in and out, and but I was in and out starting at an early age. I was exposed to recovery, early on. 15 years old was my first treatment, but I would go out, but I went out for like long periods of time and then come back in. So at 20, I went back into recovery. I did that for 5 years, and then at 25, I went back out, and then I did that for 15 years, and I built my entire career, basically, with a bottle of vodka, right? I got married in 6 months. The big Costco fucking bottle comes back out and goes on the counter, and I'm like, "Honey, meet your new fucking relative," and at that point, like, I just kept it going, and I never wanted the party to end, right? And that was kind of my big deal. And then the fact is, like, I went in at 42, and Steve on SoberPod was my first sponsor, right? So I came back to recovery, and because what happened was it wasn't about money, and it wasn't about loss of family, and it wasn't all those things, because nobody else was talking to me for a long time anyway. But everybody was just kind of tolerating me. And then what had really happened was I got extremely suicidal, and I mean, I wanted the world to fucking end. And that's when I backed into recovery. And then what happened was my sponsor, I picked a sponsor, I went to AA and all that shit, after a while, but he was 27 years old. And I was 42. I had a family, I had mortgages, I had all that shit. But that's the thing, is that he was 27 years old, and he knew how to live my life better than I did. And he had only had 5 years of recovery at the time. And I was like, so this guy who's been working at a, Alano Club, right, is basically got way more fucking like life knowledge than I do. And I'm like, I'm fucking 42 years old, right? So I understand what you're saying, Scott, when you talk about your midlife stuff. It's like, you kind of, what I met with my first therapist, I love saying that. I met with my first therapist, and he was like, you spent a lot more time focusing on business, and all those, like, your higher functioning thoughts went all towards business and getting the dollar bill. But your emotional life, who you are as a person, the things that you focus on, absolutely no focus whatsoever, like 0% focus. What about you, Scott? Like,
that sounds like the primal. That sounds like the primal, where you just provide. You're taking everything and providing
the
for your family.
brain.
Exactly, and then saying fuck everything else. I'm going to drink. Yeah, exactly. So
I was always chasing something. I was always chasing the next toy, the next dollar. And I never really, looking back, enjoyed and lived life. It was always wanting more. And recovery has given me the gift of enjoying and living again. I was existing at the certain point. Like you had said, Carl, about business and going out, and the thing that made our business successful is me out. Some of it, a portion of it, was out me getting new business. So I was out, networking, drinking, and everything that we do in society is. A lot of it is based around alcohol. And so, I didn't know any other way. And alcohol brought me a very, very social, a lot of social anxiety. Never felt good enough in my own skin, I mean, I would never have ever been on this podcast 10 years ago.
Because you just weren't good enough to come on, right? Also, you were sober, so there's that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You have to go in sober. I'm like, I have to. I can do this, But it's all worth it in the end here, and continue to grow. I mean, we continue to change with everything that goes on in the world. Life doesn't stop because
Yeah.
we drinking. We
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
So
Well,
one
I
of the
got
things,
the
go ahead.
Good.
Sorry.
No. Well, I got the chance to see Scott in the last 5 years grow. I mean, 5 years, Scott, 4 years, however long I've known you. He's grown, and it's just amazing watching him, do what he does, and the care and the concern and the love for helping other addicts out. Just like I do, but he just does it. It's amazing to see that growth in you. So from day one when you started to today, huge growth in you, Scott, in your recovery, in your personal life. Scott and I also talk about some other issues that we have to deal with, that we work too much, and him and I always talk a little bit on the side about that. We will drop anything for work, which is good in a way, but it's also
That's good for your
bad.
employer.
It's good for our employer, yes, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why we're successful. But we can also do it, in a more of a caring way for our family too. That's some of the boundaries that Scott and I work on together. Sorry to blow your cover there, Scott, but
No.
Sweets, can you edit this out?
It's a balance,
Yeah.
In our addict and alcoholic days, there was no balance. It was balls, no balls, and 100%. 100%. The Costco vodka, they didn't have it at Costco back then. When
Yeah, you're lucky, Carl.
So, it was awful. I look back and but I guess, with what Ed and I do, because what I love about Genesis House is there's a lot of the people, therapists and stuff that are in recovery that we have different brains. We think differently.
Yeah, we sure do.
And in master's level, everyone always says, what credentials do you have? How can you do this? It's like DRUNK, and that's the only initials I have after my name. Mm-hmm. But those initials, to me, I'm able to connect with people with those initials or those letters on the outside, and send them to the people that can really help them with the master's degree, but yet are in the program. Makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can sit with another alcoholic, and right away you have something in common, and exactly what they're thinking. Yeah. Everybody's story is different, but the common denominator is that we have a problem with chemical dependency.
Yeah. It's like, here, just meeting you, Scott, it's like, I know that if we both went and sat in a room, like, we could instantly reminisce about a life we never lived together. Right. Oh, yeah. It's like, it's kind of how that works. It's like, you instantly know that, the things that, it talks about in the big book is like, that like, I talk about you wanting to commit suicide, right? It's like, but the confusion of that, the bewilderment, the frustration, the despair that it takes to get to those points. Right.
Right.
And it's people who haven't lived that kind of just don't really understand, but another alcoholic totally can. So you can be in the room with a, licensed therapist, all you want, but if that person hasn't really experienced what this is about, they can, you know what I mean? They don't really have that connection, in my opinion. They don't come down to that level. I mean, they have professionals, don't get me wrong. They have but
no, it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, God bless them in that. But I go into the hospitals in my town, and I take people that don't want anything to do. I just sent somebody down to Genesis yesterday. The family was hopeless. Everybody was hopeless. There's no hope for him. I'm like, there's hope for him, and. But I went in and talked to him, and I told him exactly what I'm sure, you got to be totally transparent and open and honest. You tell him exactly what you've gone through, because you know what? He's gone through it. It might be different. His trauma might be different, but we've all had trauma. We've all had anxiety. We've all had depression. Yeah. And if we don't have any of that, and we're chemically dependent and insecurities, if we don't have that stuff, we're lying.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, guys. And Scott, you brought up a good point. You have to go in there, be transparent. I remember getting clean. Remember when I was getting sober, I was so embarrassed. I was so like like disgusted with myself might be the best word, that I'm doing this, that my life has come to this fucking treatment. I got to go into this treatment. Yeah. Right. But what I look back on that now, and this is what I tell every addict. And I always say every time I talk to them, when you're going to look back 5 years, 2 years, whatever it is from now, this is going to be the best day of your life. March 10th, 1994 was the best day of my life. When I was in it, I thought it was the worst day of my life, because now I got to go into this hospital. They're going to detox me. You know, I got to admit all my wrongdoings and blah, blah, blah. But that was the best day of my life. And if you can convey that to somebody, or if you can connect that with somebody, knowing that there's no deep, dark secrets here, I think that's the key to somebody turning that switch on, saying, okay, maybe I do need some help, and maybe it's not as bad as I think it might be.
Right.
Anybody?
Scott just
no,
says yes.
I don't think so.
Yes, I agree. It's a good time to get the phone number in.
Exactly. Yes. SoberPod, donate. Oh God. But no, I mean that's a connection that we all have.
So I want to bring it back to the main topic too. Like, so we talk about all that stuff, which is the idea here. You kind of
Thanks,
like you have that incomprehensible demoralization is what we term it as in the big book kind of terms, or AA, right? We have the incomprehensible demoralization, but there's also when we talk about midlife, we really have, and I think a lot of people come in this way, and this is the struggle I think for a lot of guys, and it was for me too, which is like, the body doesn't metabolize alcohol like it used to, right? And you end up crossing a line that you don't understand that you've crossed. And then all of a sudden, I wake up and I realize that when I realized that I was completely physically dependent upon alcohol, and that I fucking could not live a day without it, scared the fuck out of me, because I was like, and then from that day forward, I was trying to stop and couldn't. And that's a real struggle, and that's a real demoralization that happens within itself. But then, not only that, is like when I got into recovery and I got, like, I don't know, 6 or 8 months, like there's that thought that goes off in your head. It's like, maybe I was making too big a deal out of nothing. It's like, fuck that shit. I was shitting blood. And that's what I'm doing, is I'm sitting here I have to remember that I fucking was shitting blood. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is there that, Scott, did you ever go through that moment where you were like, I was making too big a deal out of nothing? Like, maybe I just need to get my business back, or because I did that same stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I look at, this whole thing, and I tell this, if I put all my 30-day coins together, I'd have about 15 years of recovery.
Cashing out.
Yeah, right. I mean, yes, 100% right. I mean, in even my wife, one of my relapses was I hadn't been drinking for 3-4 months. She was starting to like me again.
Yeah.
Because they always love you, but they hate you, type of thing.
Sure.
Like me again. So we were out to dinner, and she drinks alcohol, so she's having a martini, and I said, well, I'll have one with you. And so her drinking buddy left. When I quit drinking, her drinking buddy left, because that was a big, huge part of our life. I'd come home from work every night drunk, that she didn't really know, and then I'd have some more drinks. And she'd say, you've had 3 already. Isn't that enough? I'm like, oh, just one more. And I had before I got home. But, and I had a couple drinks at the bar, 2 to her 1. And then we went to the table. I had a couple more. We came home. She, checked on the kids, went up to bed, and my head was in the freezer all night.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where I'd be up every 2 hours drinking, and I wasn't sleeping. And, I tell people these stories, and a lot of people like us can relate to those. And yeah, it was an awful thing. And I tried. And I always say 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and you make it a year, it exponentially gets better, but you always have to be working your program.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask a wrap-up question here to both of you guys.
I didn't do it. It wasn't me. I was dead at the time. I got a brother who looks just like me.
I was in Hawaii when that happened.
Right.
So the life you lived versus the life you have now. Okay, the life of drinking, and it's Scott, I know you a little more personally than I know Carl, but the life you lived before, while you're drinking, the life you have now, would you trade this recovery life for everything you had back then to get all that back? I know this is a stupid question, but some people might be thinking, well, I can go back to that life. I can just have that same life that I had. I just don't have to drink anymore. But that's not it. It's just not the drinking. It's not the drinking. It's the thinking. It's the actions. It's what motivates you. It's where you've been, what you did, how you did it. It's the stinking thinking. Would you guys ever give that back up to live that life again?
I'm going to start because Scott want Scott to finish, but for me, I literally I got purpose out of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have purpose before. Even I had my own company. I was doing 6 figures, right? Like I was upper 6 figure. I was like, woo, and I did all this shit, but but in this life today, I found a purpose and a meaning that I never really understood that I had before. And it just something is like that was now instilled into me that I don't think that if I was to trade this for that, obviously that goes away, right? Because all the things and all the stuff, they take away the meaning and the purpose that I have today. And so I don't think that I wouldn't trade just for that. And that's really weird. Here's the thing, is you're talking to a newcomer and you tell them that they're going to have a new meaning and a new purpose. That doesn't fucking sink in. And when we say shit like, we're going to love you until you love yourself, they don't fucking know what that even means, because they don't even know what the fuck love is, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, but we keep throwing these things out to these people, but so the concept eludes somebody. So if you're listening to this, I guess here's the thing is, and if you're thinking like, fuck yeah, I would love to have 6 figures rather than the whatever the not 6 figure, right? It's like, you're not who you think you are, right? First of all, like you're not those things. You're not a job. You're not, something other than who you are, and you will. The thing I learned and what my sponsor tells me, the guy who basically I call when I'm really fucking hurting, he tells me to live from the inside out rather than from the outside in.
Amen. Amen.
And I never really understood that until more recently. So that's
me too. Me too.
And I just kind of
laugh.
like,
me too.
Okay, like that. And you hear those things like, again, we're gonna love you till you live yourself. They don't make sense, right? And like living from the inside out, from the outside in. Fuck you. That sounds like I don't know, like Karate Kid kind of shit. Wax on and wax off stuff. Like it just literally it doesn't make sense until it makes sense. And I think, Scott, you talked about it a little bit too. Time takes time, right? And it's such a simple thing to consider. And when I was my first sponsor, Steve, I wanted everything fixed right now. Like, you know what I mean? And that's the thing is, he was just straight up with me. He's like, dude, this is going to take the rest of your life. Like this doesn't happen in 6, 8, 9 months or whatever. This takes what it takes. And there is no time frame for fucking sanity. It happens as naturally as it should happen. So
absolutely.
Anyway, Scott, you're up.
You're up, Scott.
Yeah, thanks.
Would you trade it? Yeah.
No, I look back at it and no, I wouldn't. And people say, well, why wouldn't you? God put me through, and I call my higher power God, but okay, he put me through this. And he made me go to 4 inpatient treatments. He made me be on state insurance. He made me go from having everything to practically nothing. He did it for a reason, so that I could relate to help the next guy, next person. And so that's really what my mission and my passion is to help the next person not have to suffer as long as I did, because my family didn't know where to send me to treatment. They didn't know even how to get into treatment, What do I do next? And so I think that that's my purpose. I get text every Thanksgiving. I get text every Christmas from mothers. I get them throughout the, when the son graduates from college. I got a text the other day from a mother, thinking about you today. He's got 1.5 years clean. He went to Genesis house. Just wanted to let you know he's in a really good place.
That's worth $1 million right there. Getting those text
more.
Messages, man. It's amazing getting that stuff.
How do you do that? You can't put a price on that. And I look at all the stuff I did way back when, and I'm buying insurance for when I'm not here. It's like I got to do everything I can do to help the other people because, and I said I had the best job in the world, and I meant it because I'm living recovery 24/7. I still go to meetings, I still try to volunteer and do things, but I'm living the dream of
Mm-hmm.
recovery and able to help people that I never thought would be possible. I have the feelings that I'm doing good for others, which makes me feel very good inside and you know, makes me whole.
Yep, absolutely.
Hole in it.
Yeah.
But by plugging this stuff up is plugging up the hole, and you start to feel better about yourself. You start to feel fulfilled. I was never fulfilled before.
Nope. Nope.
You know,
No, there was always, yeah,
fulfilled
yeah,
because I
yeah,
had everything I wanted. But when you
exactly.
look at it, you look at what's really important in life. You don't have a clue, and you got to be so patient for that, and that's the frustrating part.
Mm.
I have to suffer as much. Well, I had to suffer as much because I won't be able to do what I do today if I didn't suffer as that much.
Exactly. Scott
Well,
Carney.
I hope you suffer more so you can help other people.
That's right. Exactly. Keep suffering, bitch.
Yeah.
Scott Carney, thank you very much, Scott. We appreciate it. Scott is our business development guy in the Midwest and all around great guy. Thank you, Scott. And I'm honored to work with you and learn from you. And thank you for doing everything you do with us. We really appreciate it. So,
Well, thanks. Thanks, Ed.
yeah. Good. Sweets, I want to ask you too, real quick, before we close here. We had a discussion on one of our shows a while ago. There was a specific reason why I asked that question. And you, me, and the Podfather had a discussion that if somebody came into the studio, dropped a wheelbarrow full of $1 million in the middle of the room, and we all answered this question. Remember that? Would you go back to drinking, or would you take your whole life back? And each one of us said, absolutely not. I mean, that's your feeling here. I'm guessing.
Wait a minute. Now you're putting a dollar amount on it. I think I might take
everybody has their price.
I mean, come on, $1 million.
So
Sweet.
are you asking me a question?
Yeah. Well, does that $1 million challenge still stand as a hard no, as we spoke in the past?
Well, yeah, of course.
Good.
I'm very happy with my life and my recovery. I would never want to give them up.
Yep, absolutely. And so what, you got recovery earlier in your life too. So what's your thoughts on the midlife recovery and some some closing thoughts on that?
I mean, I think you guys did a good job of covering it.
Because I do get emails on what's Sweet's opinion at the end of the show.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have too much to say other than, recovery is an amazing thing. It doesn't matter what age you are when you get it, just get it and hold on to it. I mean,
Exactly.
Same across the board. So, I mean, I think we all face different things at different ages, but it's just recovery. Get well, stay sober, make a better life for yourself so that when you're asked that question, no, I wouldn't go back because I like what I have now.
Absolutely.
I think one of the important things there is it's never too late either. That's the other thing I think that comes across the older guy's mind, right, or the older gal. It's like, is it, I'm fucking too far gone, and I can't do this. And I've seen dudes come in at 60, 65. I got a guy that I know. He's like approaching 70 basically, and he's new to recovery, his first time. And it's amazing. And here's the thing, we talked about in the earlier in the show, which is we talk about being stunted, right? It's that emotional stunting that happens, and so sometimes that can like really lead us down some difficult times, especially when we're older, is that we have to learn and grow emotionally. And it's just it's really difficult because you're used to doing something for so long that this new way of living just absolutely can tear at you. And being older, it's so you kind of look at it and you go, I'm too old for this, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it, fuck it. And that fuck it moment, it can just really come at you pretty hard. And so I guess that's the thing is, and that's what I think Scott was talking about earlier too, which is time takes time, and just to really hold on to it.
It is. Yeah.
All right. Well,
that's the whole thing, Carl, right there. You summed it all up. Time takes time. And when you're in it, it's good. As you get deeper and deeper in it, you keep adjusting. I heard, and I'll close with this. I heard this saying Apollo
Wisconsin,
11,
Kenosha, right
the
in
guys
between
Neil
Chicago and
Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins
Yeah.
were the first ones on the
So,
moon.
it's
So when they
the,
got shot up
further
into
southeast corner
space,
of the state.
you
Right
know, they had a plan what they were going to do, but the plan wasn't exactly
Yeah.
routed out because of technology back then. And we have more technology
Yeah,
on our phones nowadays than they did in that whole Apollo mission, actually. But every 10 minutes they had to adjust to get back on
drugs
course
from
for
Chicago
what,
to Milwaukee,
12 hours,
so-
whatever it took, for 50, what, I don't even know how many hours it took, every 10 minutes, because the technology wasn't there. You know, they didn't set a GPS and go directly to the moon. They had to read charts. They had to get themselves back on course. And that's what we have to do in recovery. We have to get ourselves back on course. We fall off the course once in a while, and we suffer a little bit. We don't relapse, but we have some hard times and we get back on course. You know, we're not doing it every 10 minutes. Sometimes early recovery, you have to do it every minute, but as life goes through, you know, you're adjusting yourself here and there, and that's what recovery is. So guys,
I don't want to see you adjusting yourself anymore, Ed. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to see that anymore.
Well, that's the camera underneath the table. So that's for you, Carl. But you know, be open to change is basically what it comes to. Be open to change. Be ready to change. Be ready to accept whatever's coming through. And you know, as you and Scott did, I applaud both of you guys, and it's wonderful to have Scott on. And Carl, I can't thank you enough for coming on this show, doing a bunch of episodes with us. I really, really do admire your recovery. I really like your podcast. You know, you and Ellen and Steve have a really good show over there. I really encourage all listeners.
Chelsea too. Don't forget Chelsea.
Chelsea. That's right. Forgot Chelsea. Hi, Chelsea. Sorry about that. Chelsea's new to the show, but a couple months now. But I really do admire all the information you guys got. So flip that dial over one and listen to Sober Pod, guys, and support them, please. And
thank you.
That's about all we have for today, guys. Carl, Sweets, and Scott, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And stay sober, Friends in Recovery podcast.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you too, Scott. Thank you too, Sweets.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
That concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for supporting those on the path to recovery and for keeping this valuable resource free for our Friends in Recovery community. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. If you can't get enough of Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, you can catch them on Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast, available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube.